you're uncovering within yourself, like you're understanding what makes you tick. You're understanding why you are the way you are. Like that to me is the fun. Like I find that so fascinating, learning about these deep rooted things that if I was just living my day-to-day life, like I wouldn't ever uncover about myself. And that's life changing. Like that you show up differently. You become more confident in the person that you are because you have a solid understanding of like who you are, why you are the way you are. And then you have the control to then change that if you want, because now you know where you've been and where you come from and what's created this, you know?
This is the Energy Within podcast, all about accessing, nurturing, and building your energy and confidence so that you can embrace who you really are, be your true self, find your soul's purpose, and start taking action on it. My name is Carrie Jokala. I am your host. I am a Reiki master teacher, a fitness instructor, a wife, a mom to 2 little boys, and this is episode 133, and today is slightly different. I do have a guest today, the incredible Katie Lane, who has been on the podcast before. But today's not really an interview. It's just a conversation. So I brought her on to have a conversation about how doing all of this healing work on the energetic and the emotional side can be a fun thing, something to look forward to, even though the work itself and what you end up dealing with could be very heavy, very maybe even dark. But the end result, knowing what the end result can be and likely will be, is what's exciting. Because a lot of times we look at the things that we know we probably should deal with that we're not dealing with. And maybe deep down we know that these things are the reasons why we're stuck, whether it's in business, in relationships, just in life in general. But maybe we're afraid. Maybe we just know it's going to be a long journey and a lot of work, and we just maybe feel like we don't have the energy or the time to take it on. But if we can just be willing to take the first step, and then we can see the results of that first step, these healing journeys like this can be incredibly beneficial, especially when you've maybe been doing all of the things, following all of the strategies, doing all of the different steps, and you're still stuck. Maybe it's time to look at the emotional and the energetic side of your healing journey and start taking some action steps there. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. It was just me and Katie kind of riffing about our own ideas and our own personal examples. And I just hope that it gives you more of an inside look into what delving into this side of yourself can do for you. I won't keep you waiting any longer. Here we go. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming back. I always love talking to you.
My pleasure. Very happy to be here.
So, as I was saying, today is not so much an interview as it is just going to be a conversation, because the prompt again was that I was listening to another podcast and she mentioned about how a lot of people tend to not really look forward to healing sessions, healing work, probably because of that word work.
Yes.
And like, oh God, now I got to do this. Or maybe it's scary. Like I need to face up to something that I really am not sure. Like I'm kind of ready, but not really. Whereas you and I are probably a little biased. But even though it's deep work, and I don't mean this in like a light sense of like, oh, we're going to have a jolly good time. But I really do look at this stuff like it's fun. It's exciting. I can't think of the right word that I want, but like I really look forward to doing all different types of healing sessions like you and I do, and like other energy healers or whatever, all those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
sessions, because I want to find out why I'm
Yes.
having these problems and what I can do to get rid of them. Because a lot of times we're doing all the things, or we think we're doing all the things, or we are doing all the things here in the physical realm, and things are not getting better, or it's only a little better, or we'll get to a certain point and then we'll get sent all the way back. But
Yeah.
if we're not looking at like the energetic side, the mindset side of things, and we're just
Yeah.
continually repressing the
Yes.
emotional side that we're not dealing with, that's a huge component that I think a lot of us neglect to actually look into.
It's a ginormous component. And this is like, I feel like what I've been doing individually and as an entrepreneur, what my kind of healing work has very much, this is so fitting because it has very much become an extremely emotionally based healing process, like for myself and for my people, because I'm the same way. Like I look at it, I'm like, because I got to a point in my journey with my physical pain, my herniated disc, all the chronic back pain I had, and I've done the physical, the physical, the physical, the physical. And I came to a point where I was like, huh. Like I really started to have this inner like inclination at first that like, this is probably, there's got to be an emotional component to this. And that's when I really went like all in. But I did come to a point where I feel like I had this inner knowing all of a sudden that like for me, my healing journey has very much an emotional component. And I think for a lot of people, honestly, it takes that level of awareness first and that level of openness to be willing to kind of explore, but also believe that their emotional state and the energetics and all the things that you mentioned, like, could actually be a part of them healing.
Well, I should really read the book because I keep bringing up this phrase all the time, but the body keeps the score. Like wherever we're feeling that pain, like, yeah, it's physical, it's real, kind of like we were talking about the last time you were on the podcast. Like it's real for sure. We're actually in pain. We're not denying that, but there is a connection to the energetic side of things. And so many people maybe kind of write it off like, you know, how could my childhood trauma possibly be the reason that I'm having back pain today? Well, if you dig all the way back and you start looking at habits that you've acquired, the way you tend to respond to things, the way you hold yourself, it all starts to manifest and collect. And then if you're not dealing with it, it's just like, it's the same thing. Like if someone gets angry and they don't let it out, they don't talk about it, they don't say anything, they just keep it all inside, it's eventually going to come out in an explosion where it's going to be uncontrollable. It's going to literally blow everything else up. You know, you can't like keep all of this connected inside. You got to do something about it to shift it.
Right. And I think too, like what can be hard, I've talked a lot about this recently actually, is what can be hard is thinking that something you can't see is contributing to your pain, whether that's like physical pain or emotional pain, because our pain, even though like emotional pain, you might feel like it's not necessarily tangible. When you're living with emotional pain and you're living with physical pain, like it's tangible. The pain is tangible. So when someone brings up a non-tangible way to heal that, it can be really weird to like wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Like for me, thinking that my emotional stuff could even be a factor in my pain for a long time, I was like, no way. But like you just kind of went into, there is more of a logical, like our emotions, our feelings truly are the root of everything we do. Like if you're more of a logical type person and maybe not like tapping into the energy and tapping into this, like looking at it as like your emotions dictate your actions 100%.
Yeah.
So, and your actions are likely contributing to your pain. That's something that's easier for people to wrap their head around. But it all ties back. It all stems back to the same thing, the emotional, the energetics, all of it.
Well, and you think about stress too is always one that I like to use as an example, because I think that's one that people tend to accept a lot more, that stress can be an emotion. It can be something that you feel, but then it also manifests physically in the body. Like you can feel stress. Like I have a certain knot in my shoulder that gets particularly tight. And that's when I know, like, okay, I've reached a really high level of stress right now.
Right. Yeah, it's true. So the woman that I'm actually working with right now, she is a prime example. To use an example of like proof per se or evidence per se, is she's someone that actually came to me originally thinking she wanted to work together on like entrepreneurial type stuff. This is what always happens. And this is why I finally shifted into more of like outwardly saying I help people on the emotional aspect, because every time I would work with someone, that's where it went. Whether it was business, whether they came to me for like things that wouldn't relate to that, you know? And for her, we've been diving into her childhood, just surfacing these memories and these feelings, and she's just releasing it and crying and realizing how much her past is still very heavily connected to her present. And for her, she's someone who's gone through chronic pain and chronic illness in like a life altering, life or death feeling situation. And since we've been doing this, she's noticing that it's connected to her physical symptoms as clear as day.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap, like to be seeing someone going through this as we're working through this, that she can see when her symptoms or her flares kind of go up, get more intense when she has these big emotional releases, and then she can go back down. It's like how connected your emotional response is to your physical pain.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, when, you know, we're trying to figure out like maybe why we can't lose weight, or why we're stuck in business, or why we can't figure out, you know, what our next step should be, and whatever it is we're trying to do. And we're doing all of these more kind of surface level treatments or fixes. Like just to take the weight example, because it's easy, you know, if I just fix the way that I eat, then maybe I'll start seeing a shift. But maybe it's tied to something that happened to you that you're holding on to emotionally. And if you actually dig and you can start to figure out what that is, everything else will just naturally start to shift as a result of you finding the root problem and working on that. You know, and then it's like, well, it's that same thing. We're like, if we find the root cause that way, if we do it the flip version of, you know, instead of coming for business and winding up working on the emotions, if you know that you need to work on the emotions and you start doing that, then your business is going to start to shift. Does that make sense? Absolutely. The way I put that?
100%. I'm 100% on the same page. I think all of our external world, like we're struggling in our business, or we're struggling to make the amount of money that we want. We're struggling with our health. We're struggling to do the day-to-day things that we know we, air quotes, should be doing. And we often go to these more physical fixes of like, oh, I need to be drinking more water. I just made a post about this. Like, I need to just get up earlier. I need to just be more disciplined. I need to just spend more time in my business. I need to just do more money-making activities. And it's like, but why are you struggling to do those? Like when we continue to peel the onion, it's so much deeper. Maybe it's because, you know, your family's watching you and you're feeling super judged. And you have this emotional tie with your family that's holding you back from being able to show up in your business. That has nothing to do with spending more hours on your money-making activities.
Right.
Right?
Well, what I wanted to say too is just about going back to the idea of this whole journey being fun in a sense. And again, not like making light of anything or acting like it's some kind of party that we're coming to for these sessions, but just, it's almost, for me, there's a little bit of relief in knowing that, okay, even though I've been trying all of the things, I've been doing everything else, I've been trying the strategies, I've been doing the steps, there is still something else I can try here that might actually have a better, stronger chance of helping me figure out what this root cause is and actually doing something about it. because you can only go so
Yes.
far doing the strategies.
Right. 100%. And I've noticed too, is it's like, there's some people that are more attuned with like, it's a lot of like the basic term for it, I feel like, is self-reflection. Like all of this healing stuff is such a they're deep ways of like true self-reflection, true like self-exploration. Like I've never really been one that feels connected to that term, like self-exploration or self-discovery. Like they seem like very just like typical terms. But now that's what it is it's like you're uncovering within yourself, like you're understanding what makes you tick. You're understanding why you are the way you are. Like that to me is the fun. Like I find that so fascinating, learning about these deep rooted things that if I was just living my day-to-day life, like I wouldn't ever uncover about myself.
Right.
And that's life-changing. Like that, you show up differently. You become more confident in the person that you are because you have a solid understanding of like who you are, why you are the way you are. And then you have the control to then change that if you want, because now you know where you've been and where you come from and what's created this, you know?
We love learning about ourselves too. Like we like hearing about us.
Yeah.
So we figure out all this stuff. And that's part of what makes it exciting. Like, oh, that's why I'm acting like this in these situations. That's why I can't move forward. That's why I have a hard time charging more for my services or saying yes to clients when they actually show up. Maybe you push people away. Like I remember when I was a Beachbody coach, and the very first coach I signed, I was like all excited at first because she like jumped onto this comment that I had made on this one page and was really interested. And then she was doing some research and she was like asking questions. And I just like word vomited all over her because I didn't know what to say. Because I also I wanted to move forward, but I also had no evidence that I could help anybody yet. She was my first coach. So I didn't want her to think that I was inexperienced, but I wasn't I didn't lie or anything like that. Like I told her she would be my first coach, but I also wanted her to understand that like I can figure this out. But also in my head, I specifically remember, just in my head, never out loud, but in my head, don't sign up with me. Don't sign up with me. You don't want to sign up with me. I don't know what I'm doing. Like that internal dialogue. Like, so outwardly, I'm like trying to show like, hey, I can figure this out and trying to pep myself up. Like, yeah, you can do this. And then inside, I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. Right. Please don't sign up with me. Please don't sign up with me. Shoot. Right. Sign up.
Yeah. And you were like, repelling.
Yeah.
You were like repelling it from trying to happen. And I think, so to me, what I call these and what I do is our core beliefs. Like, I think a big part of this kind of inner work is uncovering your actual core beliefs, which sounds very simple, but it's not, because our core beliefs are like in our subconscious. So we're not really consciously aware. Like we might think in our everyday life, like we might look at ourselves as being like the go-getter, the person who can be successful, the person who can really do the thing, right? But in your subconscious, you're actually like, you believe you're never going to be successful. And if you don't uncover that core belief, you're never going to align with success ever.
That's funny that the conversation has led to this point, because that's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, this idea of actually being ready for success and being in a place where you can accept success. It's something I think we never talk about. No one even thinks is a thing. Like, why wouldn't you be happy to just suddenly have all these clients and all this money? And I got to tell you, like, as a recent example, seeing my podcast numbers spike like pretty much exponentially compared to what they've been at, there's a part of me that is really excited, and the other part of me that's like, oh shit. Like people are actually showing up now. Like, not that they weren't before, but you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like it's starting to spread. Like, oh my God, what if I disappoint people now? What if I can't hang on to this? Like all that self-doubt creeps in. Like there's that gap between where you feel comfortable, where you think you want to be, and where you probably can get to. But then there's that work that kind of has to happen in between to actually get you ready for it. And that might be the block to why you're not getting there, because you're stuck in this comfort zone. And as much as you believe that you want this certain level of success, are you actually ready to handle it?
Right.
Yeah.
Or do you believe you're ready to handle it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because if you have these underlying core beliefs of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be successful, I'm someone who's not meant to have a comfortable amount of money. Like this scarcity, living in this scarcity mindset is something that I've had to work on big time for myself, because I've uncovered that like I always thought I at my core, even though I'm like my conscious mind, I'm like, Katie, you're so capable. You could be so successful. Like you have everything it takes. But I've uncovered with me that I had super core beliefs that lie within scarcity of that I will never have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And how that then translates into my everyday action is I was sabotaging my own like ability to have enough. And I didn't even recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And a lot of us have that too. And like, we don't think of it as a comfort zone because it's not comfortable to be there, but it's comfortable in the sense that we're used to it and we know what to expect. You know, so that's why it's still hard to make those changes and step out a little bit. Right.
It's more like you're living in a predictable place.
Yeah.
Right. People might align better with that. Cause like we look at our life and we're like, well, I'm not comfortable living like how I am. Like I want more money. I want to be more successful. Like this isn't comfortable, but it's predictable, and predictable is safe.
Yeah. And even when it comes to something like the physical pain, it can be that way too, where like, it's not that you enjoy being in pain, but you know what your day is going to look like. You know what to expect. You know how to react in certain situations, and to actually do the work that it takes to move beyond that can be daunting.
That was huge for me, Carrie. Like that, what you just said, that was a major breakthrough in the last 6 months for me. Was I was able to uncover that like, as much as I said I wanted to heal, and as much as I said that I want to do the work and get better physically, I was so afraid of the potential setbacks, or of the potential like, because my pain is predictable. My day, yes, I'm still living in pain. Yes, it still dictates a lot of my life, but like I know what my limits are, and that's safe. Is it comfortable? No, I'm in physical pain, but it's predictable and it's comfortable. And that's what I realized, is I was so afraid of what would happen, or what could happen if I started really doing the work. Like, what if it hurts me more? What if it hurts me more? And I think on the emotional and more spiritual side of healing, I was just talking about this with my client. We uncovered together, she like had this like moment where she just fully embodied and accepted. She's like, this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what she is opening the door to go back and see all this pain that she's been carrying, and like with her family and with her life, and like the emotional, what that brings up. A lot of times we just carry on in a void. And I just made a post about this. I'm like, some people die that way. Like some people leave this earth never truly knowing or uncovering like the potential of what they could have been if they had explored themselves. Some people leave this earth like that, and that's okay. But other people aren't satisfied leaving this earth like that, you know, like not tapping into what is in there, but knowing that it can be fun, but it is work. It's emotional. Yeah. It's heavy.
Well, that's the other thing too. And I've been seeing a lot of people making posts about this, and I actually have a reel that I'm working on that's going to be kind of along the same lines. But when you get into the energetic and the emotional side of things, and people talk about like the love and the light and all this, you know, fun healing vibes that are coming in, like that's great. And yeah, like for example, Reiki, like I do consider that, like I fill you back up with the light energy of Reiki after I clear out all of the dark shit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we aren't looking at. Like there can't be light without the darkness. So you shine a light on the darkness So you know what's going on, and you got to deal with it before the light can fill up that space. You can't just be like, oh, I found it, and then that's it.
Right. I have such a good visual of this right now, like shining a flashlight on this like, I picture like okay.
Oh, that could be a good reel.
Yeah, like we're walking into like, like a train tunnel that like isn't covered, like under the ground. It goes in,
like
so there's
something
like a
creepy.
Stone. Yeah, there's like a stone archway. The train goes in, so it's like it's dark and you can't see anything. It's like we're going in with the flashlight and you uncover that there's this like room piled with boxes and dark, dusty shit. Oh, I found them. Like I found my shit. I found the darkness. Like I found my pain. Yeah, I found my pain. That's step one. Like uncovering the pain. And then it's the work of opening the boxes, blowing off the dust, and actually putting them away. Or like, ooh, such a good visual. Yeah.
That's the part that people don't maybe want to talk about or don't think about, is that it's not just about shining the light. It's about doing the work with the dark stuff to get rid of it.
Yeah. We all have dark stuff. This is a thing. It's not like I work with a lot of women that have dealt with like chronic pain, chronic illness, or like trauma. But we all have emotional pain. We all have trauma. Like we're not special if we've gone through things. We've all gone through things.
Yeah.
And
I interject one little thing. I think it's always important to note too that for people who don't think of it this way, we think of trauma as like, oh, some big giant thing that happened to me. But I've heard it described as like there's big T trauma and there's little T trauma. So something as small as your mom not paying attention to you at this one time when you were 3, when you really wanted to tell her something and she told you to go away because she was busy. That might be a moment in time that stuck with you. And you're now behaving a certain way or reacting to things a certain way because of that moment.
Right.
Regardless of what your mom's intentions were, or what was actually going on, how your 3-year-old self viewed that moment could internalize in your body as little T trauma.
Absolutely. And I think trauma is like a big word these days. Like it's a very in thing, which it's an in thing for a reason, because a lot of people are now exploring their trauma. But the problem when things become very like in is I think the word gets thrown around and misused and misunderstood. So I actually think it's really good that you're kind of putting clarity on this, because trauma, like we think of, physical abuse, emotional abuse, something like really negative in a sexual way happening as trauma. And those are traumas, but the smaller things that like you were talking about, it's how trauma we think of as a physical thing happening to us, but it's what happens inside of us as a result of what happened in the environment or the situation.
I like the way you described that. Yeah.
Yeah. Trauma is what happens inside of us. And we don't have control like necessarily over that when we're like, think about when you're little and someone says something, or you're in a situation and something happens, like how you internalize that isn't necessarily in your control. So it's like, doesn't matter how big or small the situation seems on paper.
Right.
If something happened inside of you, something happened inside of you. And when you start to kind of like open that door and surface these things that have happened throughout your life, this is what we're doing right now, is realizing how that situation has recreated itself time and time again in your life. And you felt the same way over and over again. And the only way you can change that from continuing to happen into the rest of your adult life is acknowledging it, understanding the emotion, understanding why it's making you feel that way, and then choosing where you want to go from there. And you can change it, but it's a process.
Yeah. Well, like just as a personal example, like I think of things that happened to me when I was a kid, and again, like you were saying, like you look at it on paper and it seems so small and it's like, okay, you're an adult now. That happened to you when you were 10. Get over it. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
But really, you go back and, you start telling the story about what happened and you wind up in tears because you're still affected by it, because you probably thought like, hey, I should just get over this. It's done and over with. It was kids. And I don't know if I'm taking this on a tangent or not, but this is more
take it away.
Probably a personal
thing.
But there's, people say this just a lot in general, but as a specific thing, because I watch Frasier a lot, there's a moment in one of the episodes where they're talking about kids being bullied for whatever when they're younger. And one of the lines, one of the women was like, it's part of growing up. Just kind of like a blow it off kind of thing. Oh, no, it's just part of growing up. And that, like just stick a knife in my heart, won't you? Like, I feel like okay, I think in terms of Instagram Reels a lot, apparently. The one with the knife in the heart, then you twist it and pull it out.
Yes. Yes.
Like, no, we can't control what people say or do, but let's acknowledge that it shouldn't be part of growing up. We shouldn't just look at it as kids being kids, or even as adults, like, oh, that guy's just an asshole. Like, just let him be. Like, no, that's not, it doesn't have to be like that. And it's kids especially, like, they shouldn't just have to put up with being made fun of, because that's what's going to turn us into who we are when we're older, and dictate how we respond in certain situations. And maybe that's why that one guy who is an adult is an ass. It's because of what happened to him when he was little.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, the only way we can prevent, like, I don't think there's a world where a kid would grow up without ever dealing with like some sort of something, which sucks. But I think we're all humans. But the only way to really move as far away as possible, I think, is for people to do the inner work on themselves.
Yeah.
Because that is the creation. Because kids are a result of their parents. All their parents that have dealt with all their shit. When you become a parent, how you react to your child, how you speak to your child, how you parent your child, which is a result of your upbringing, right? But those parents who are doing the work and trying to not just saying, I am who I am. It is what it is. Yeah, I grew up with an alcoholic dad. Yeah, I grew up with this. Yeah, I did this and that's just why I am the way I am. But the people who take responsibility for that and decide, okay, I want to go inward and I do want to change how I am reacting. So I don't bring my kid up in the same way that I did. That's when we start to actually, if you want to use the word heal the assholeness of the world.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because I was made fun of a lot as a kid, in my middle school I literally feel it boiling in my chest right now. And I can, as an adult, look back and I can see it was a result of the family they were in. I can, as an adult, look back and say they were treating me like this because of what they were going through in their life as a kid, which is a result of their parents and what their parents were going through at that time, but also what they went through as kids. Yeah. So it's like, it's deep. It's deep.
My brain is just going through all the different examples of things that happened to me as I was growing up, and all those moments. And I don't know if it's even relevant to tell this story, but it's in my head, so I'm going to tell it. There was like,
tell it.
So, you know the movie Carrie? No, you're so young. I actually only saw it once, but I know about it just because I share a name, apparently. But it's basically this girl who's like made fun of and ostracized by all her classmates. And then she gets crowned the prom queen, but it's like apparently all a setup. I could be telling this wrong. I've only seen it once. But they humiliate her. Like they drop like a bucket of pig's blood on her, but then she like gets revenge with all these like psychic powers and stuff. But it's the whole like being made fun of and the being set up and all of that. And like I feel like I was almost set up for one of those moments when I was in high school. I learned when I was young to completely shut myself off from ever accepting a compliment, because usually I figured out after the fact that it was something backhanded or it was a setup into a joke to make me look stupid. So I would just completely shut them down. And freshman year of high school, I remember we're in gym class, we're walking from the school down to the football field for whatever we're doing that day. And there was this kid on the football team. He was kind of cute. Like, I wouldn't say he was like super hot or anything, but he was kind of cute. But this one chick, I don't even remember who she was. I don't even know if I ever knew her name or anything, but she came like walking up next to me like, hey, so-and-so wants to invite you to, or wants to ask you to homecoming. And I looked at her and I like, part of me was like really excited, like, really? Me? He wants to, really? But I'm like, I cannot let myself get set up. So I said, kind of with an attitude, tell him to ask me himself.
Yeah.
That was my way of protecting myself. Like, does he actually want to? Like, is this for real? Like, I'm trying to read like the smirk on her face. Like, is this actually a thing or not? He never came up and talked to me. He never said a word to me the entire time, like all 4 years of high school. So to this day, I have no clue whether it was a legitimate ask or not. Because for me, I was worried that I was being set up. So I just completely pushed it away. And I've noticed scenarios, just like the Beachbody scenario that I gave, like all these situations where something good could happen, but what if it's a setup, or what if I'm just going to fail? What if I'm not good enough? And I push it away.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're questioning the validity or like the truth. Is this really happening to me? Or am I really good enough for this situation to be real? Like,
So I guess my point there is not necessarily that, maybe not that I would label that trauma, but maybe it would be a little T trauma that I learned to close myself off from those compliments like that, because of like, you learn from what happens. Okay, every time someone compliments me, this actually happens and that's not good. And I don't want that. So I'm going to shut it down. And then that continues, and it can manifest in other ways that prevent you from seeing success in your business, from having close relationships with people, from just feeling happy with yourself, anything. Like, it's these small little moments that maybe we're ignoring or we're not willing to consider are part of the root cause of why we're stuck in whatever area we're stuck in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like these emotional experiences. That's kind of how I look at them. Like, if the word trauma doesn't really like resonate with you, or because it doesn't resonate with everyone, they're all just like emotional experiences that we've gone through over a lifetime and how it's affected us. And they compound. This is the other thing, is they compound, like the effects of that. I was reading a book, this book, Healing Trauma by Peter Levine, and he was talking about how they did like a study of watching animals in the wild. And after they experience a near death experience, like they're getting attacked or whatever, they videotape them in slow motion after, and you can literally watch the animal acting out the rest of their like escape route. Like their legs will be in running motion, and they're expelling the energy after the quote unquote, like the trauma happened. So animals have this instinctual nature to expel the energy after they experience a trauma, right? Which is one of the differences between us and animals. Because they were studying the effects of trauma on humans versus animals. Animals basically take care of it in the moment, right? We as humans, we go through the emotional experience, or we go through the trauma, something happens within us, and then we don't expel it. We don't do what the animals do. So where does that energy go? It stays inside of us. And that's like a big correlation between like chronic pain and unhealed trauma. It's literally like unexpelled energy.
Yeah.
Just in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that would mean, whether you're someone that deals with chronic pain or not. Think about all of that like undealt with crap just in you over 30, 40, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So I know through all of this, everything that we're talking about can sound pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of our conversation was how it can be fun to go and look at this side of ourselves. So I don't want anyone to be listening and thinking like, oh, geez, this doesn't sound fun at all. This sounds like really heavy. But again, going back to the whole point of more that maybe like it's exciting to be able to finally find the roots, to be able to figure out why things are the way they are. That's what's fun for me. That's what's exciting, because you can't do anything about it until you know for sure what it is. Or you've at least started to uncover, like maybe if you haven't found the exact root yet, but you're starting to dig your way there and you've found the first little jewel that could be what leads you to the next one until you finally find the root. And then you start to see, this is where it gets fun, when you start to see the results of doing this work. So as daunting and as heavy as it can seem or appear in the beginning, if you can be in that right mindset to know that this is going to benefit you by giving you the results that you've been wanting and not able to get through all of this other stuff that you've been trying, knowing that uncovering all of this in the end is going to open everything up. It's going back to that darkness and light idea. If we deal with the darkness, then we can get rid of it. And then there's going to be more room for the light and more room for all the fun and exciting things to come in and more room for peace.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like thinking of these. It's like there's such relief. There's such weight lifted. Like I feel like just so many of us are living with so many insecurities, so many fears, so many things, like all the constant worry that we have. Like for me, this is what's freed me. It is freeing me from that. Mm-hmm. Is this emotional work, is freeing me from the insecurities, the living in fear, fearing everyone's reaction and judgment. Like imagine if this type of exploration within yourself starts to lift that off of your life. Mm-hmm. Whatever that makes you feel, whether that's excited, peaceful, like on top of the freaking world, like, like it's incredible. But you also have to be, in my opinion, like everyone's on their own timeline with it.
Yeah.
It isn't with me, what I know what me and you do are in similar realms, but different at the same time. Like, but I know for me, and this has been something that I've had to work on, is knowing that like, and this work has helped me get to this place, having the confidence of trusting that other people know when they're ready.
Yeah.
Right. I used to want to heal everyone. I used to want to help everybody heal. And I've realized like not everybody is there yet. Mm-hmm. We're here. I'm here. Like I say we, because we're here when people are ready. That's how I feel. I'm here when people are ready.
Exactly. Like that's how I feel about it too. Like I'm not the kind of person who's going to go chase anybody down in their DMs and be like, oh, you should come do a Reiki session. It's like, no, I would much rather share on my page what it can do, how it can help, share stories, that sort of thing, and let it attract the people who will read it and know that they're ready, and they'll be the ones to reach out. Especially when you're dealing with something like this. Like, I don't like it when anybody cold DMs anyone or tries to sell like services that way in any industry, any business. But I think especially with something like this, where you're talking about people's unhealed trauma, unhealed emotions, you can't jump on somebody and be like, you should heal this part of you, and this story means that you did this. Because they're just going to shut themselves off and be like, who are you? Who do you think you are?
That's the thing. If someone's not in a space to open themselves up and receive anything, it's not going to, it could be beneficial, but it's not going to have the breakthrough or the true impact that it has on the people when they're actually ready.
Mm-hmm.
Such a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one quick last example, I guess, is when you can understand something about yourself too. I think the flip side of it sometimes can be that you realize there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you can look at something that you do and think that, like, oh, that makes me so weird, that makes me so different. And then you find out that, no, that's actually, like, that's just in you. That's just part of you. Like, to explain it better, like my astrology chart, like, I don't understand any of that. Like, anytime anyone brings that up for me, like, they have to describe all of it to me. Like, I have no clue what any of it means. But my Reiki teacher brought up our charts over a couple of classes, and mine, it makes so much sense. Like, it's on this wheel basically, and pretty much everything, like all the lines that you would see on someone's natal chart, all of mine are like, it's like this perfectly balanced triangle type thing on one half of the circle. Whereas some people are more like all over the place. Like, I'm like this perfectly balanced little, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And there was some point in there that explained, there were two things for me that stuck out. One, showing that there's something in my charts that makes me someone who loves to learn, which explains why I have like 8,000 courses that I have open, because I'm always wanting to learn more things and just constantly in that learn mode. But that also is a learning point for me in exploring how I get stuck in information consumption mode versus taking action and implementing, which is something I've been getting better at. But like, to know that that's in my chart and that it's actually just part of how I was born, basically, I'm like, okay, I'm not lazy. I'm not weird. I'm not intentionally procrastinating. This is something that's actually part of my makeup. And then this other point, which makes a lot of sense too, and actually explains all of the jumping around that I've done in trying to figure out my thing up until this point, is that some placement of something in my chart indicates that I have to love what I do.
Yep.
Or I'm not going to do it. Like, in my core being, I have to love it, or I'm going to be very unhappy. And while on one hand, I'm like, yeah, that's true for everybody. You would think, like, you would have, don't you want to like what you do? But some people, and I'm not knocking it, no judgment, no right or wrong, but there are some people who are perfectly happy to go work a random 9 to 5 that has nothing to do with what they went to school with, and they don't mind because the rest of their life is how they want it, and that's fine.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, that's where I would get frustrated. I'd be like, this is not my purpose. Like, I'm one of those souls you were talking about earlier, where I would not be happy leaving this earth without having figured out my purpose and doing something about it.
Have you heard of human design work?
I have, but I haven't looked. That's another thing where I looked it up once, and I know I'm a generator, but beyond that, I have no clue how to decipher that thing.
Well, it's the same. So like, it's astrology. It's actually like, so astrology is the day you were born, right? That's where everything's based off of. Human design work is 3 months before your first breath is supposedly when our soul is born.
Oh, okay.
So the human design work, it aligns with what you're saying, where there's a lot of, I've had human design readings done, and it was so validating to who I am as a person, because it's literally who you were designed to be before you had any external conditioning whatsoever.
Okay.
So like, how validating these things are for you, right? It's the same thing with human design. Like, we learn, this is another avenue that you can learn and explore yourself. And it shows us, it's like a permission slip to be who we actually are. It shows us that, like what you were saying, there's not necessarily something wrong with us, right? It's like, we understand the tendencies we have, then we can explore what has been the emotional conditioning or impact that has altered us from there that we actually have control to change, right? Because we still have like control to change these things, but it's like who we were designed on a soul level coupled with the external world and impacts and conditionings creates who we are right now.
I think you finally cleared up what I've been trying to figure out that I wanted to interject with that last piece that you just said about this line of, well, this is just who I am. I think there's two pieces to it. There's the piece we're talking about now. We're like, okay, this explains who I am. And it means that I'm not weird. It means I'm not broken. This is just me versus what we were saying before. This is just who I am because of what happened to me in my past. Like there's a different perspective and we need to be able to, I think, be honest about which one it is. Is it this is who I am because it's my soul imprint and I need to accept it instead of acting like it's making me broken or weird versus this is who I am because I don't want to deal with the things that happened to me when I was younger. And that could be yesterday because you were younger yesterday.
Right.
And knowing which one of those is the thing that you need to either change or embrace. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is too. And I think it can be tricky to decipher. It is tricky to decipher. Like when I started learning about my human design stuff, oh my gosh, it made so much sense to me how I operate as an entrepreneur. Like I am so not what I see. Like I am not what I see online and all these business coaches and all these things. And I always thought like, because I have all these ideas and all these passions and all these, like I'll never be successful. And then I learned as a manifesting generator, like, no, bitch, that's who you're designed to, you're designed to thrive like that. Right. And so in my head, I'm like, all right, I can embrace that and work my strengths into that, but also know that like, I got to deal with my emotional shit that is also adding to why I'm such a scatterbrain. Like there's both happening here.
Well, another point for me was, actually, so there's a third one that I just remembered, that there is also something in my chart that shows that I have to be unique and different. Like my soul desires to be different from everybody else, which explains how I can be so weird sometimes. But it also explains why I feel better and I feel happier when I embrace that about myself versus times in my life where I look back and realize that I was trying to be more normal and not let that side of me out, and how unhappy and how disconnected I felt. And that was the time when I felt like, you know, I didn't have friends the way I wanted. I didn't have connections with people the way that I wanted. People didn't see me the way that I wanted them to see me because I wasn't really being me, you know?
Yes. We just talked about this. Me and my client were talking about how we can get frustrated with our family, like not feeling like my family doesn't really know me. Like whoever of you listening right now feels this or has ever felt this. And I had a realization of myself of, well, were you always trying to be who you thought they wanted you to be? And now you're pissed at them because they don't know who you actually are? Dang. Yep. And because it was like, I spent so long being the Katie that I thought they wanted me to be. And now I'm 28 years old and have done all this work on myself. And I'm like, this is who I am. Hello. And I am like, but no, Katie, you got to own the fact that like, you didn't give them the chance to get to know you.
Yeah. Oh man, you know? We could go on forever about this.
I know. This is good stuff right
further
here.
And further down all these, all these paths. So,
but like, this is, if you guys are listening to this, like, this is how you know who, truthfully, like who is living on that same kind of level, right? Like, because there are going to be people who wouldn't give two shits about this conversation, really. Like, it doesn't, they wouldn't be interested in it. But if you guys are like, oh my God, like, yes, this is soul level stuff right here. Like, you're our kind of people, you know, like, and that's what we have to do is once we embrace, like, and start to really know who we are, it allows us to align the rest of our life with that.
Yeah.
The people we surround ourselves with, what we do for a living, that sort of thing.
I'm really trusting that when you are yourself your people are going to find you.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming and doing this conversation with me.
You're so welcome.
This is definitely awesome. Something that I felt would be better as a conversation versus me just trying to talk it out myself, because being able to have that back and forth, like you get the extra perspectives, you get those sparks of like, oh yeah, and then this. So thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome. Thank you for choosing me,
of course,
to be the one to have this conversation.
You're my healer friend.
Yes.
So I would still love to have you leave your information right here and tell everybody how they can find you and work with you if they are feeling aligned with you from this conversation.
Yes. So my Instagram name is Healing with Katie Lane. And what I call myself is a soul level life coach. And that is me. Oh, it feels so true. Finally embracing like what I do. But basically, I feel like I really help women heal on an emotional level after experiencing like chronic pain, illness, or trauma, really focusing on rebuilding themselves in true alignment with who they are and really doing the emotional work that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, people that want to explore what they've been through since they were a little boo-boo all the way up until now.
A little boo-boo.
A little boo-boo. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook. I have my own podcast, Enough with the Small Talk. But Instagram's the easiest way to find me, Healing with Katie Lane.
Awesome. Yay. Yeah, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I know that we went off on a few tangents, maybe me more so than Katie, but that's just how my brain works. And like we said in our conversation, I am embracing that part of myself, and I have for a long time. I don't care in the sense of I embrace who I am, so I'm just going to be myself. And that's part of my mission. That's what I want for the people who come to me, is for you to embrace who you really are. So that's one reason why I've launched into doing all of these reels and allowing myself to show off the goofy side and kind of try to be funny. So that's like my way of letting you know that it's okay to be yourself, even if you think you're weird, because you know what? You're actually probably not. And also what I like to say is that if we're all weird, because we're all weird, if we're all weird, then we're all normal, right? So please check out Katie's Instagram, listen to her podcast. Please feel free to reach out to her if you feel connected to her and like she is the one to help you on your healing journey. If you would like to try out a Reiki session, come and do that with me. You'll find all of Katie's links and my links in the show notes. I am launching the Akashic Records sessions, and there's a whole bunch that goes into that. I don't know if maybe I'll do a podcast about it. For sure, I'm going to. I keep promising. I'm going to do a video in the Energy Within Facebook group explaining all of it. By the time this episode here is released, I should have done that, because as I'm recording this today, my intention is to do it today, which is Saturday, and we'll see what happens. But that's the next step. And then the next step after that, I will be launching Reiki 1 classes very soon as I get my stuff together and figure out how I want to structure it. That is coming ASAP. So if learning how to do Reiki is something that you feel is in your path, stay tuned for that. Feel free to ask me any questions that you might have, and I will be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed this episode, if anything in it resonated with you, if it stood out to you, please share this episode. Share it with someone that you love, that you know needs to hear it, or share it on your social media. Tag me, tag Katie, and let us know what stuck out for you. Thank you so much, as always, for listening, and I'll see you next time.